Before we get going into your Hockey IQ podcast episode, I want to thank our sponsor, Rapid Shot. Rapid Shot is the smart shooting lane. It's like a batting cage for hockey players. Very cool. Tracks your shot in three ways: accuracy, shot speed, and reaction time. Easy to use. Actually, I used it when I played and was growing up. Very easy. Simply scan your phone in, select your settings, and start shooting. You can see your stats on the app and online. You can check them out at rapidshot.com. Great small business. I actually grew up with one of the owner's sons and have played with all the family members by now, just in local pickups here in Ohio. Very cool local business. Awesome product. I love it. I know quite a few NHLers have them in their homes. A lot of D1 programs have it at their rinks. So you have to check this out. Rapidshot.com. Check it out. Rapid Shot, thank you so much for sponsoring our podcast.
On the podcast today, we bring on Danny Heath of Project Hockey. Really excited to have you, Danny. I think you got a real cool story, cool background, winning state titles with your older brother, playing all the way up at D1 with Minnesota State, which seems to be doing half decently these days.
Oh, yeah.
And then building Project Hockey. So excited to have you on, man.
Yeah, super pumped to be on. I'm actually, I guess I don't know when this will be released, but I'm leaving next Wednesday to Pittsburgh to go watch my alumni, Minnesota State University, play in the Frozen Four. And so it's, we haven't won the big one yet, but we've won the most game in the last 9 years. So we'll take that. But I'm, super pumped to be on. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Well, Project Hockey is a cool program. So I think we need to talk about that a little bit, but obviously we're going to get into some skills and different things like that. But let's start with a quick background for those that don't know you and don't know your story.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Arizona, very non-traditional hockey market, and I grew up as that kid. Like, I loved hockey so much. We had awesome coaches. Like, I had two ex-NHL hockey players, Jimmy Johnson and Ulf Samuelsson, were my coaches as youths growing up, and then played my youth hockey there. Played 3 years in the USHL. Each season is 60 games. I played a total of about 53. Not because I was a healthy scratch, but because I probably had every injury in the book, including dislocating my pubic bone, which is very common in pregnant women. So I've done it all, from head to toe. And then from there, like you spoke about, I went to, I went to Minnesota State University, played 2 years there. And then my sophomore season took a pretty bad slew foot, smacked my head on the back, or smacked the back of my head on the ice, and was done playing hockey. Like 9 concussions and 10 surgeries and 12 broken bones were enough. And so I switched to coaching, and then 3 games into my coaching career, I took a puck to the mouth and completely shattered my jaw. And so it was tough to get away from those injuries, but hockey, I can't get away from it, right? Because I look at those injuries, I take those out, and the game of hockey's done so much for me, right? Like, it's how I paid for my school. It's how I met my wife. It's how I attribute that to having 2 unbelievable kids. And so it's like, what can I do to give back to the game? And that's where I jumped into Project Hockey. And so it's been fun. It's been an absolute blast, and injuries suck, but like I said, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Well, that is quite the record you have there. Probably most injuries in a career right there, just with how many have added up for you. Which one was the worst?
Man, that's a tough question. Honestly, I think it's, so I, besides getting my jaw wired shut and breaking that, and because that was over Christmas time, right? So I missed out on all the Christmas and holiday treats. But honestly, probably the worst one was just when I separated my pubic bone and I got 2 sports hernias, and I ended up getting a cortisone shot in my groin, and that made it worse somehow. And it just, it was a weird year, because I was playing in Des Moines in the USHL, and one of our coaches was JP Parisi. It was a couple of years before Parisi passed away, and it was awesome to learn from him. And I was just kind of bummed, because I got like 25 games into that season, leading the D in points, doing awesome. And then woke up one day after a 13-hour bus ride or whatever it was home from Green Bay, and just couldn't get out of bed. Like, my lower body was shot and I couldn't move it. I ended up having to fly out to Pittsburgh, actually no, Philadelphia, and having surgery on that. And so it just, that was a bummer because I was finally back in it and I just missed the entire season prior because of shoulder surgery. And then that happened. And so that was kind of those two stacked up. And like I said, I played 3 years of junior hockey, but I didn't really get to play. Right. And so when you miss that much development, it's tough to step into college hockey and play. And so rehabbed and all that stuff sophomore year and then, or freshman year. And then sophomore year, like I said, got that final concussion. And so if I had to pinpoint one, it'd probably be that groin surgery, just because it honestly felt like I couldn't walk for a while. But it's all better now, and I'm up and moving, and I don't know, couldn't ask for a better turnout, I guess.
Yeah, it's a lot of rehab and a lot of work away from the rink, which I don't think enough people understand the value of and the monotony of doing that. So tip my cap to you for embracing that. It probably has a little bit of something to do with it being an entrepreneur and the perseverance that's required. I mean, what did you take away from your recovery process and coming back stronger, and obviously being able to lead your team in points as a defenseman or leading the D-corps in points with, again, losing a lot of development time? What is that like? How are you mentally preparing for that? How are you physically preparing it? What have you taken away?
Yeah, it was kind of one of those things, like, and I bring that into the business world all the time, right? Like, when I first got injured, when I injured my shoulder and I was done for, like, literally I got hurt in the first game of the season, tore my rotator cuff, ripped everything apart. I actually fought in that game. So I ended up averaging a fight a game that year. So I'll take that. But it was one of those things, like, when I knew I was done for the season, I didn't have a plan. Right. But then as soon as I figured out this is the plan, like, here's my goal, here's where I'm trying to get to, I want to be back by this date, here's the markers I got to hit along the way. And as soon as I had a plan, things kind of started to turn around. And it was always a bummer when I'd get there and then I'd get hurt again, but the idea was, like, as soon as I made it purposeful, it was something that I could stick to. And that's a lot of the stuff, like, we do with Project Hockey, right? Like, Project Hockey is not a drill library. It's not a PDF. We've been around for 3 years now in the virtual hockey world, and we know what works and what doesn't work. And it's just like, if I was to go to a hockey camp, like, imagine showing up to a hockey camp and the coach saying, like, okay, here's 5,000 drills, pick one. Like, that doesn't happen, right? And so we bring that same mentality into the virtual space, where it's like, here's your daily plan. And so that's exactly what Project Hockey is. It's like how I took my rehab, and it's like, okay, time to actually do a daily plan. We do that in the virtual hockey space, where it's like, here's your mindset work, here's your hockey IQ, here's your warm-up, strength session, skill session. We do challenges every day. And so it's you kind of hit it right in the head. Like, a lot of those things carry over, and not just into hockey. Like, I'm like, the idea, like, it carries over into the business world again. And so it's like, I don't know, usually the most successful hockey players are the most competitive, and the most competitive people are the most successful people, whether it be hockey or business. And so, yeah, it's definitely something I carried over, just the idea of, like, you got to have a plan, right?
Always got to have a plan in getting it done. Obviously, it's the Hockey IQ podcast. So I'm curious, what does Hockey IQ work look like in the daily plan that they're going towards?
Yeah, so we have awesome coaches. Like, we've got 3 ex-NHL hockey players on our staff. We've got ex-Division I hockey coaches. Like, we've got phenomenal hockey coaches that basically create these Hockey IQ lessons for our players, where they're breaking down plays, whether it be in the National Hockey League, the OHL, the WHL, the Quebec Major Junior League, the USHL, the women's game, like, whatever the clip is that has a teaching point, one of our coaches will break it down for our members, So whether it's like, hey, look how we enter the zone, look where Patrick Kane is, look where his toe caps are, so he can kind of create some more space for him, all the way down to, like, the very basic skills, where it's like, hey, look, watch how TJ Oshie stays on side here, so his players can get in the zone and then they can attack. And so it's basically just video breakdowns of different skills that happen inside the game of hockey. And the cool part is, like I said, since we're a day-by-day platform, we're like Facebook for hockey players, where kids can actually comment and they can talk about the skill. And we have, like, a whole parents group inside of it. And so it's it's pretty cool when, the skill or whatever the hockey IQ is that day not only gets posted, but then the kids are talking about like, hey, did you see that? Did you see this? And, we're in 13 different countries right now. And so kids are able to talk, like the kid up in Pittsburgh can talk to the kid all the way over in California, or the girl up in Ottawa, or the kid over in Germany. Right. And so it's pretty cool when you have all these different influences of the game, all talking about the same skill, which obviously gives you a higher hockey IQ, which gives you more confidence and ultimately makes you a better hockey player, which is what we're all about.
That's awesome. That's really cool how you can go cross borders. I mean, being on Twitter has been phenomenal, and creating a friend work, as I call it. It's a network, but also so many friends. So have to imagine that carries over into the platform that you're building, and going deeper into coaching and how you're providing this mentorship and this guidance to players. You're doing camps, you're doing project hockey, you've been an assistant coach up in Minnesota. How are you differing your focus when you're teaching the different players and different timelines, and how you present the information? How do you kind of go about that?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in video, and people kind of laugh at me when I walk into hockey rinks because I got my hockey bag, I got my stick, and then I got my 32-inch TV that I carry under this arm, and I've got all my connections to the TV, and simply because I can put that in the penalty box, and whatever skill we're doing that day, I'll always have like a video of it, right? And so if we're working on puck protection, obviously Crosby 87 is going to be brought up because he's obviously the best in the world at it. And so, we'll show some videos of him. And then I always like, so I'm a school teacher at heart, right? And so like the idea of like, okay, let's learn the skill, let's rep it standing still, then let's start to move a little bit and do it. Then let's do it up and down the ice. Then let's put it into a drill. Then let's put it into more of a game-like scenario. And then we put it into a game, whether it's cross ice or a bigger sheet of ice. And then we reward that for points inside of that game, right? So like if it was puck protection, like we would simply do it like, hey, you and a partner team up. We're going to do it very like standing still, almost just working on the finer details of it. Once we do that, then we'll start to move with just you and your partner up and down the ice. And like, I believe me, I'm a big fan of throwing props out there because I think it engages the kids, and I think there's a reason for it. But when you think about skill development and what it is, like you don't need that stuff. And so I'm a big fan. I'm just like, hey, you want to learn to puck protect? Well, here's a player. He's or she's going to steal the puck from you. You're going to puck protect. And here's 5 different ways to do it, right? And so getting away from buzzwords, because like I was always that kid that coach would yell at me and be like, Heater is my hockey name, right? And so like, Heater, you need to create more time and space. And I'll be like, okay, how? And they wouldn't have any idea, right? And so now it's my mission, like if I use a buzzword, it always ends with like, here's 5 ways to do it. And so like, hey, you need to create more time and space. Here's 5 ways to do it. Hey, you need to work harder. Here's 5 ways to do it, right? And so just getting away from those buzzwords. And so like getting back to that puck protection piece of it, we'd then put it into some type of drill. And usually whatever that drill is, it's mirroring the same situation that we just watched on the video from Crosby. Maybe I'm getting all over the place with my words here, but basically like we'd take whatever that situation was, we'd put it into a drill and we'd rep it over and over and over again. And I'm always the idea, like you guys are with me for an hour. It's okay to be bored, right? Like you have the other 23 hours to go. And like I've heard Adam Oates say that, right? Like you have the other 23 hours to go and have fun. It's okay to be bored and work on puck protection in one scenario for the next hour with me. And then from there, we always take it into a game. And so if it's just cross ice 3-on-3, it's 1 point for a goal, but you get an extra point if you puck protect before you score that goal. And so we always make sure we're bringing that skill and we're rewarding that skill because it's the 21st century, right? And these kids we're working with, they thrive off that type of stuff. And instead of trying to fight it and hang on to the old school, like my way or the highway, I just embrace it, right? And like, hey, you want to be rewarded for stuff? Let's reward you for puck protecting. It's an extra point if you do it. And so that's kind of the like a high level of what it looks like. But like I said, just big believer in the video, because then the cool part is like when we're doing those drills, I can film and I could talk for hours of this stuff. So tell me to shut up if I'm rambling on, but you know, like we'll do one of these drills and I can film the kid with the iPad and then throw it right up onto that screen, put it side by side with Crosby and be like, hey, does this look like this? What do we see? How can we get better? And so it's pretty unique, I guess, the way I do it. People call me a dork a lot, but I picked this up from Adam Nichols, who's one of the best. He works with Belfry, and it's pretty cool the way he was doing it. And I just kind of jumped onto that piece of it. And, you know, that guy is one of the best at doing it. And so it's pretty, it's been pretty good with the way we've been rolling with it, and it's starting to develop some really good hockey players.
Yeah, I love what you're doing there with using video. Like I've done the same thing where I bring out the iPad. And lately for me, it's about creating as many coachless drills or just like continuous drills where I don't need to interfere with it. And I can focus more time on coaching. So I think that's a huge point. What kind of software are you using?
I use a coaching platform called Coach's Eye, I think it's called. And basically I can like draw on the screen and do all these cool different things and put it right up on the screen for the kids. And then I can draw on it. They can see it. They can actually watch like, okay, look what I'm showing you. Instead of just pointing, I can draw a circle on it. So I just use Coach's Eye and I just plug it right into the TV and kids can see it a lot easier that way.
That's awesome. And I love that it's teaching, because I think a lot of people like get into it for the coaching aspect of it. And exactly what you said, they use so many buzzwords rather than simplifying it down to the actual cause. And when I'm bringing in new coaches under myself, I'm always saying like, you need to give the most specific feedback as possible. Like, I don't care if you literally are saying, okay, because you put your foot this way and that way, like it's much better than doing those big words where the kid's like, I don't know what's going on right now. Yeah. At least get them thinking in some shape or form. So that's awesome. I mean, I'm curious, what are maybe some of these little details? And you can even use as a example, like a defender now, like the position is completely changed.
For sure.
Of how we're defending, especially rushes against, skating forward, things like that. I'm curious, maybe some specifics for you from a defender, since you were one. How have the positions changed? What are kind of the details you're looking at and you're preaching with your kids?
Yeah, I just think I think the whole idea, like, you know, we went through this phase of hockey where it's like underhandle that puck. And I'm not a believer in that. Right. And so like, I think like, and I got this from another coach through the Adam Oates system. But basically like, if you were to take a person who doesn't have the ability to see, right, like they're blind, and you give them a cane and you say, okay, here's your cane, but you cannot move it. You got to keep it straight the whole way. And you'd be like, walk through the street, right? They would run into everything in the way because they can't feel, right? They can't go back and forth with their cane. So I feel like we're doing the same thing when we tell kids not to handle the puck. Like we tell kids, don't stick handle, because you don't feel that puck. And so if I can't feel that puck, I'm going to start looking down at it. And then it's like, okay, now you're yelling at that kid to look up, right? So one, you tell them not to stick handle so you can't feel the puck. Two, you tell them not to look at the puck, but you can't feel it, right? And so like the whole idea that I'm getting at is like you have to be able to let kids stick handle that puck. And so we'll do a lot of drills where it's like for defenders, you know, we'll pick a puck out of the corner. We'll spend the whole hour on this, right? Where it's like, hey, pick this puck out of the corner. And then I want you going behind the net, and from behind the net on this side till you get to the bottom of the circle on the other side, I want you to stick handle this puck 16 times or 15 times or 10 times, whatever it is. And then I want you to move that puck. And sometimes we'll like overshoot it, right? Where it's like, okay, you know, 20 is probably too much, but I just want you to get the idea, because if you know where that puck is on your stick, one, it gets your head up and your eyes up so you can see and make plays. And two, it allows you to feel where that puck is. So if you got to shoot it, pass it, sauce it, whatever you got to do, like you have the ability to do that. And so, yeah, we do a lot of things like that where it's kind of against the grain in some aspects, just because I was brought up like, you know, we've had coaches that, and I was guilty of this early in my career, where I taped tennis balls to the back of my defenseman's sticks because I didn't want them using their backhand, right? I was like, hey, don't use your backhand. I literally taped tennis balls to the back of their stick So if they got to it, they couldn't use it. And then that player that I did that to was in a game and had the puck on his backhand with a chance to win it and couldn't do anything, right? Why? I did that to him, right? I didn't allow him to use it in practice, so he couldn't use it in a game. And so I guess the big point is like when my defenders come around the net on their backhand, pass it on your backhand. Like that's how you get better. I agree. Yes, your forehand's a better way to pass, but you're not always going to have it. So what better time than to work on it than in practice, right? And so we do a lot of stuff like that where it's just we focus on one skill. And like you said, the game has changed so much. And if you can't angle, you're not going to be very good at it, right? And if you can't have good gap control, and I'm fortunate enough to connect with Mike Weaver a lot, and he doesn't use the term gap control. He uses the word somebody's ice. Like that is somebody's ice. And so it's pretty cool when you think about it, when you flip the mindset of your defenders, like it's not gap control. You're not controlling the space between this person. That's somebody's ice. And if you let that player get more of it, then you're going to be in a world of trouble when they're coming down on you. Right. And so it's finding a way to just take these little details, whether it's gap control or somebody's ice or angling with your stick or overhandling the puck to make sure you can make a play or zipping pucks on your backhand. Like these are things that we work on. And I'm fortunate enough, in my opinion, not to be a coach of a team. Like I do skills coaches for a lot of different teams. But I'm able to work with these kids on these different things and not have to worry about X's and O's and forechecks and back checks and things like that, because that takes up a lot of time. And if I had to do that as well, I wouldn't be able to get through as many skills as I do. And so, yeah, it's pretty cool when you get to, I love it, right? Because I work on these skills with these kids and then I get to sit up in the bleachers and watch them execute it. You know, the way they do. One of the kids I work with plays for Bemidji State, and it was pretty cool to work with him all summer and then watch him beat Wisconsin in the first game of the NCAA tournament. Like there's nothing better than that, right?
Yeah, and then you start getting to the point where you've got kids on all the teams, and now you got to choose your favorites.
Absolutely. But I'll always I work with Minnesota State a lot and do some skill work for them, and so they're my boys, right? Alumni, and we're gonna go to Pittsburgh here next week and win that thing.
Damn straight. Love to hear that. Love to hear that. So, going back into the coaching, the skills work that you're doing, what are some things that you think are most important at various ages, and maybe start even before that? You know, maybe what are some of the skills that you're currently teaching that you think aren't getting touched on enough?
I think the biggest thing, like on the skating side, is just being more efficient. You see more and more like kids are having hip surgery now when they're like 15 years old. Like that's crazy, right? And so I teach a lot of efficiency skating where it's like, hey, you don't have to take 30 strides between here and the blue line to get to top speed. Like you can do that. You can do that in 10 strides, right? And so I always think of it like, if I were to go to the beach and someone were to tell me like, hey, run as fast as you can on the beach, I'm not going to dig my feet into the sand and try to run, right? And yet we have a lot of coaches that are like, hey, dig those toes in and get those first 3 steps and dig into that ice. And I want to hear the sound. And it's like, you're just slowing those kids down, right? When it's like, okay, you're literally diving into the ice and trying to skate. And so a big thing that we just try to teach is just like staying on your glide platform and staying on top of the ice and riding your glide and using your entire blade of your skate, because skates are thousands of dollars nowadays. And you're going to tell me only to use the tiny toe of it? Doesn't make any sense. And so we use full edge type of stuff. So I would just say at a young age, like that efficiency skating is huge. We plan on doing a whole camp around that here in Minnesota this summer, where it's just like, hey, we are going to learn to skate more efficient. And so that's a big thing. The other kind of thing that I work on is just boards, right? Like getting pucks off the board is a skill that should be worked on all the time, because the puck is on that boards all the time, right? And so we'll spend whole practices of just like throwing pucks into the boards with different bounces and pulling it off and making different plays, whether it's in the D zone, neutral zone, offensive zone. Like, you can create thousands of drills off of one skill, right? And so I never go into practices with like, here's the 10 drills I want to do. I always go into practices with like, here's the 2 skills I want to work on. And then at the higher level, I'll ask the kids, like, what do you have issues with? And then I'll use that skill to enhance that issue. At the younger levels, you can kind of just see, right, where it's like, okay, they're struggling just picking pucks off the wall and getting them to the middle of the ice, or they're struggling getting pucks through the neutral zone with speed. And so we try to find different ways to do that. And so I just think like the biggest skills where kids can work on, especially at the younger age, is 1, being more efficient on their skates and using that glide platform to get a full stride and a full edge. And then 2, just pucks off walls, whatever zone it's in, right? And so finding ways to just manage that part of the game is a big piece of it.
Yeah, and the glide is huge. I think that's probably the thing I see most with high school and even some college kids that I work with, and the inefficiency and inability to kind of get that skate underneath them where they're just digging in on both inside edges and they're slowing themselves down even when they're trying to, again, be more efficient, be able to be fluid and roll those edges so they can better turn themselves. It's going to a point where they literally have to like pick one of their legs up, put that back underneath themselves to then go in the direction that they want. It's frustrating, but once you see skaters that can do it well, it's unbelievable the mobility they're able to find. It allows them to react much faster and dictate much better.
For sure. I mean, you watch a guy like Eric Carlson, like he might take 3 strides a whole game, and yet he's all over the ice, right? Just because the way he maneuvers. And so it's when it's done right, it's pretty cool. And Connor McDavid is a phenomenal skater, but no one else can skate like Connor McDavid, right? Like no one can do that. And so that's where it's frustrating when you people are trying to teach that, and it's like, I don't know, if I were to show my players, like I just wouldn't feel right, where it's like, hey, here's Connor McDavid, do skate like that, right? Because I don't know, I heard something the other day, like if there was a league above the NHL, he'd be in it, right? And so it's tough, but I do think kids need to be more efficient with how they're skating, especially with, I mean, kids skates cost more than my mortgage, right? And so it's crazy.
It is crazy. And the only reason McDavid's in the NHL is there's no other league you can go to play in that's better. So
yeah, exactly.
It's insane. I'm always like, okay, we're showing McDavid clips, but he's also a human cheat code. Not sure we should do that. I mean, I'm a big Lars Ellers fan. Like we could pick a guy like that and show how efficient he is in the role that he is, which is very manageable for these guys, not the best of the best. Generational.
Absolutely.
Really rolling it back. I want to maybe talk on kind of how you go about with Project Hockey, and it's the daily. So you're talking with these players daily, you're posting things daily. There's a grind to that, there's a grind to being a great player, and you don't really have many options other than putting in the work on a daily basis to get better. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the importance of the daily grind. Obviously you had to do it through your rehab and getting better, making sure that you're not falling behind or even, getting ahead with how good your preparation is. So when you finally do come back for rehab, you're not that far behind developmentally.
Yeah, it's about, like, our big hashtag in the Project Hockey world is just about doing the work. Hashtag do the work. Because like we have every day, right? Like we have Hockey IQ, we've got hockey mindset stuff with Lauren Williams, who played at the University of Wisconsin, professional hockey player. Lindsey Fry played at Harvard, U.S. Olympic silver medalist. Like they're doing hockey mindset for our people. Hockey IQ, like we spoke about earlier, we've got all these awesome things. We've got skill set sessions from the best coaches in North America. But it's not going to work unless you're willing to do the work. And so a cool part about our platform is like kids can log their scores, right? So when we do a challenge, kids can log it. When they redo that challenge, the app will literally shoot confetti off in their face and tell them if they did better or not. And then when you finish skill sessions, like you check them that they're completed. And so kids can start to see those results. And we've got kids, like I said, we've been around for 3 years. So we've got kids that have done over 300 of these workouts. And it's cool because, when we redo a challenge, which we'll redo probably 2 a week, will be recycled, just so kids can start to see their development. So we literally have a kid that's done the same challenge in the last 2-3 years, probably done it 4 or 5 times. And the score of the challenges are getting better and better and better. And it's because that player is doing the work. And so when you look at some of the best players, like this stuff is all, like I said, we have the best stuff in the world, but it's not going to work unless the kid's willing to do the work. And so that translates, and that we got to have Connor Garland on. So we do Zoom sessions just for our members where we bring on guests, right? Like we've had Connor Garland of the Arizona Coyotes. We've had Teddy Bluger of the Pittsburgh Penguins, Mike Weaver. We've had some really cool, Matty Rooney. We've had some phenomenal people come on and do these Zoom sessions. And Connor Garland is the perfect example. Like, he's well shy of 6 feet. He's a little guy, but he's one of the hardest working human beings in the world, which is why he is one of the best players in the NHL right now. And so it's like you said, it's about doing that work, and it's about doing that grind. And it's pretty cool when, like, in the kid's profile, like I said, we're like Facebook for hockey players, right? So the kids create a profile picture, background picture, all those cool things. But in their profile, you can actually see, like, so-and-so was active and did 6 workouts last week. So-and-so was active and did 7 workouts last week. And so it's pretty cool when kids start to build this almost hockey card for themselves and start to show that development over time, because like you said, they're willing to do that work.
That's awesome. I'm wondering if college coaches are asking to see that. Oh, hey, show me your project hockey scorecard. I want to see what kind of work you're actually putting in. Am I getting a true workhorse here, or just someone who looks good?
Yeah, absolutely. We've gotten a few people, just that guys that I played with, that, like, hey, do you have any members that you think? And it's pretty easy for us to look and be like, well, so-and-so puts in the work every day. And so we get calls from coaches that they're like, hey, I noticed so-and-so is a project hockey member. What's he like? And I'm able to go in there and be like, well, he or she, in this case, it was a girl. Someone was calling. It was like a prep school asking about this girl. And I was able to say, well, I could literally tell you that she puts in 5 days a week on top of, like, her practice and stuff that she's doing at the rink. She's putting in extra days. And so it is starting to get to that point. I do think sometime here soon we'll get, once our members get a little bit older, and, we did the dryland training. Project Hockey did the dryland training for the Ottawa 67s of the OHL, right? And so some of those guys, like Marco Rossi's playing in the NHL now, and during quarantine back in March a year ago, they were doing project hockey workouts. And so people ask us all the time, like, who's it for? It's for whoever wants to get better. Like, we've literally had the best players in the world use it. And then we've had 4 or 5-year-old just getting started in the game of hockey, because it doesn't matter how old you are, you got to work on these skills, right? And so it's I think one day it'll get to that point like you just spoke about, and it's already kind of heading that way.
Yeah, it's gonna be everyone's pre-day or post-day superstition, making sure they're figuring out, oh, did I get my thing in? Now I'm gonna have a good game or a good practice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, throwing all the way back. I mean, let's talk about your superstitions. What you did for pre games. You were a mall walker. Where'd that come from?
Yeah, I was just so I played junior hockey in Kearney, Nebraska for the Tri-City Storm, and that was a big shock to my system, because I went from Phoenix, Arizona, where our graduating class was over 1,000 kids, and then I went to Kearney, Nebraska, where our graduating class was about 40 kids. And so it was a big change, right? And just wasn't much to do. And so before every game, my buddy and I, Mike Sici, who's still playing over in Poland, he drafted by the Montreal Canadiens, I think. And we would go to the mall every morning. We'd go pregame skate. Then we'd head to the mall and we would just do a mall walk and, like, people watch and tag team with, a couple of the old timers walking around the mall. We try to keep pace with them. And it was just something to keep our minds off it. Cause I was one of those players that if I took it too serious, my game wouldn't be very good. Like, I had to keep things light and keep things keep things pretty simple. And so it was fun to go to the mall, walk around, goof around a little bit. And then obviously when it came time for game time, we were ready. But yeah, we just walked around the Kearney, Nebraska mall before every game, and it was something that stuck.
That's hilarious. People watching, great activity. I think more people should do it. You just observe what goes on out there. And I think that filters onto the ice too, reading the opposition.
For sure.
Any good stories?
I mean, April Fools is coming up, right? So we had I was a big fan of April Fools, and so we were, me and my buddy were good friends with the town sheriff. This was in Nebraska as well, and we had a kid on our team, Alec Rush, who Minnesota kid, super smart, going to Princeton, stud hockey player. We had the sheriff come into so we're all getting ready for practice, right? And we had the sheriff come in, and the only people who knew about this prank was myself and our coach. It's the only people I told, right, is our coach, really. And so the sheriff came in with his dog, was like, who's driving the black Durango out in the parking lot? And Alec is like, hey, it's me. And he said, you need to come with me. My dog smells traces of, substance in there. And you need to come with me right now. And all of a sudden, and this kid's half dressed for practice, right? And he starts to get pale in the face, and he's like, are you serious? And the officer's like, you need to come with me right now. And this kid from across the room, who was not in on this joke, was like, oh man, I guess you can kiss your Princeton scholarship goodbye. And all of a sudden, Alex starts losing it, tearing up. And the cops looking at me like, when are you going to pull the trigger on this? It needs to be done. I'm like, no, let's keep this going. And so he takes Alec, and Alex is talking. The officer's like, you need to shut your mouth, take your skates off, and come with me right now. And so he turns him around, walks him outside the locker room, and everyone's looking around like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. And as soon as he got out of the locker room, I was like, guys, it's an April Fool's prank. I'm just getting him right now. And so then he walked out the locker room to the back door where the players and staff come in, and he's like, turn around, I need to put you in handcuffs before I take you out the door. And then we all jumped out of the locker room like April Fools. And he lost a lot of sweat that day, and it was hilarious. And I probably took it a little too far. The dog was probably too much, and probably let it go a little bit too long, but it couldn't have drawn it up any better. And it was pretty funny watching him sweat it out for sure.
Oh man, that's brutal. I wonder, did you get any big hits that day from him, or maybe some clap bombs that he accidentally missed the net on?
I don't even think I didn't. So I was injured, right? So I had time to plan these pranks, and so he didn't get a chance at that. But it was, he wasn't too happy with me for a while. But I haven't talked to him in a while. I should connect with him. I'm sure he's living large with that Princeton education now. So it's it was fun.
As always, sometimes the worst stories become the best memories. Sweat those out, and now he's probably remembering very fondly of good times playing junior hockey. Now he's probably gotten serious, maybe has some kids, etc. So that's fun.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. I think we could talk about development all day long.
Sure.
But I guess I got one more question for you, and then I'll let you take it away from there. What is the one thing, if you're going to run a program or you're going to be a coach of a team, that you want to make sure by the end of the year your team understands like no other?
Wow, that's a tough question.
Way to throw it on you here. So, I mean, there's many things, obviously, angling, being your own development coach, whatever it may be. I know some people are more specific, some people are more high level, or just, you're a guy, you've seen a lot of hockey, you've seen a lot of development. What are some things that translate, I guess, is what I'm getting at, that you want to make sure your players have?
Yeah, it obviously depends on a number of things. What did we do last year? What's the age of the kids? Blah, blah, blah. But I think from a high level, if kids, and this is my mission with the game of hockey, if the kids can go into something and leave it better than they found it, I think it's a win, right? And so my whole mission with hockey and with Project Hockey is to leave the game of hockey better than I found it. And so how can you instill that with players? It's like, it's either through community service, it's through sticking up for each other, it's through like finding something that they can latch onto, whether, like you said, like it might be angling, it might be making sure we get the puck from behind the net, push pass, low to high type of thing, or even like sticking to a certain forecheck where it's like, this is our identity. I think that leaves what they were doing better, right? So like what I mean by that is like, if we're going to stick to this forecheck, when we forecheck, our forecheck's going to be better, right? Or whether it's through community service, if they go and do community service, wherever they do, whether it's, going to a school and reading to kindergarten kids or picking up trash, like they're going to leave that place better than they found it. And so I guess if I were to run a program, like I would make decisions based off that, right? Like, is this going to leave whatever we're doing better than we found it? If the answer is yes, then we're all for it, right? And so I think that translates into the business world. I think it translates it translates from hockey into the business world. And I think hockey is the only game that mirrors life. Big fan of football and the Minnesota Vikings, even though they never win. But like football is kind of a funny sport, right? Like you literally get knocked down, whistle blows, you get to retry it again. Hockey's not like that. Hockey's a silly game, but it's not, it mirrors life, right? Like where you get knocked down in the corner. If it wasn't from a flying elbow, I guess like the play is going to go on and you either get back up or it's going to run you over. And so I think leaving the game of hockey better than they found it is what I would instill into my players. And I think that starts with just the community in your locker room and making sure guys treat each other right, or girls, if you're coaching a girls team, and kind of moving from there into systems. And I think your systems can play a huge role in leaving the game better than they found it, because who doesn't like to win? And then just from there, the last little piece is like, I want my kids to be the most competitive players in the world. I say it all the time. Like, if I can only instill one, I got a 3-year-old daughter who's challenging me these days. But if I could only instill one thing of mine into her, is that I want her to be competitive. I want her to lose at Candyland and absolutely lose it, right? Be upset, cry. Like, I love that. I think obviously you want to help them through it and you want to like teach them how to handle those emotions. But the other night, like I beat her and we're playing War, like the card game War, and I beat her and she lost it. And I love that. Like, I love to see that in her, because I don't know, I'm not always going to be around and your coach isn't always going to be around, but if you can be competitive, I think you're going to be successful. So long story short is I would want my kids to leave it better than they found it, and be the most competitive people in the world, because I think that's what it takes. And yeah, I love it.
Love to hear that. Wasn't something that starts or finishes on the ice, but something that is off the ice and transcends
For sure.
through everything. So I like that. Coaching at the University of Akron with my good friend Matt Cook, or Cookie. We do a Life U program that's all about how do we prepare these kids not for the 4 years they're with us, but the 40 years afterwards. So we say it's everything you don't get, in school or at the rink on the ice, but like what's a 401k, even like basics like that, finance,
Love that.
teaching just mental frameworks and mental models, bringing speakers. We had one guy this year who's he runs Edwin's in Cleveland, which is basically, he was incarcerated, came out, couldn't find any job opportunities, started a restaurant, became successful, and then he just wanted to get back. So he started hiring people who are in the same boat as him, and now starting like a leadership institute and a bunch of stuff like that. And just understanding that hockey and sport in general, there's so many things that go beyond. And it's really, for most people, unless maybe you're the McDavids or Crosby's year, it's a way to just transfer life skills and give you the experience. I know bunch of guys in the coaching, you've probably come across as well, that say that coaching is the most important thing for them in their marriages, their relationships, their jobs, etc., because all the things they learned through the sport makes hockey so special.
For sure. Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Awesome stuff. Well, really appreciate having you on. I'd like to give 2 minutes. Anything you want to talk about, plug Project Hockey, all that fun stuff. I mean, it's a great platform for kids that want to get better. I think we need to get some Hockey IQ podcast, Hockey IQ newsletter stuff in there, do some Zoom sessions, all that fun jazz.
Yeah.
But tell the people about all the good work you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. One, we'd love to have you come on and talk to our members, because it's pretty special to be a Project Hockey member right now. And yeah, it's not a ton to plug. Like you can look us up on projecthockey.com, and I always just encourage, like I never try to sell it to anybody. I give it away. Like we give away memberships to teams and associations like crazy. And it's not about the money for me. I'm a school teacher by day, right? So that's what I do. And I just try to help as many kids out as possible, because I was that kid, insert sappy story here, blah, 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 where we just didn't have the means to, when my buddies were flying out to Shattuck for a hockey camp, like I wasn't doing that. Right. And so how do we help as many kids as we can? I think it's through online programming, it's through Project Hockey, and it's through giving back to the game. So yeah, absolutely. Look us up, projecthockey.com. I encourage you to reach out. My email is danny@projecthockey.com. Shoot me an email if you're a team, if you're an association. We're always swinging deals and helping you out. Look me up on Instagram, Danny Hype. But that's another story. Hype has nothing to do with hockey. It's I emceed for CrossFit competitions back in the day, and it's just stuck around. So yeah, check us out. We do camps in Minnesota all the time. But yeah, look us up. We're projecthockey.com, @Project Hockey on all social channels. Like I said, that email again is danny@projecthockey.com. And whether you want to be a member or not, like I've got kids that reach out with videos, or parents or guardians that reach out videos all the time. That's like, hey, how can my kid do better at this? And I love breaking down video, and I love watching that stuff. My wife doesn't always like it when I'm cutting something on my phone to send back to a kid, and at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, but it's just fun for me. So whether you want to become a member or not, reach out any way we can, and we'd love to help. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Not good at pumping myself, but I'd love to help out in any way possible, and ultimately just leave this game better than I found it.
Exactly why we wanted to have you on. No better person to have on the podcast. Someone who wants to leave something better than where they found it, especially the beautiful game of hockey that we all love. So thanks again for coming on, and we'll talk soon. Thank you for tuning into the Hockey IQ podcast. We are Hockey's Arsenal, Greg Revac and Dan Dukart. Together we've come together to create a platform and a community to expand on hockey intelligence, hockey IQ, whatever you want to call it. We're very passionate about seeing this game played smarter and better, and continue to develop itself to the next level and staying on the cutting edge of things. So you can find us at Hockey's Arsenal on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We're also at hockeysarsenal.com. From there, you can find some resources and some options to work with us. We're excited to continue this. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, follow, and share. You can also join up for our newsletter as well, where we're going to tackle anything Hockey IQ related. So we're excited to have everyone here and continue to build.
That concludes this week's episode. Thanks for joining us here at Hockey IQ. If you haven't already, take a quick moment to hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and drop a review. If you want to be a great teammate, even recommend us to a friend. You can follow us at Hockey's Arsenal on Twitter and Instagram. Check out the website, hockeysarsenal.com, where you can subscribe to the weekly newsletter. You won't regret it. Catch your buttes here next week for a brand new episode.